So there are like so many question marks here because first of all, we have now so many alternatives. And again, besides that, what if the consumer chain becomes larger than the hub? And this can happen with MEV, and we believe that this will be a super crucial part of crypto's future, also from a validator perspective. I am part of the party. Let's just try it out in the bear market, abstract as many experiences as possible, and then it really makes sense to determine the outcomes and to say, okay, this is the approach that we should follow in the next few years.
Welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast. Right off the bat, I'd like to remind everyone that we're organizing the Gateway Conference from June 3rd to June 5th in Prague. Wonderful city. Hope you guys come and have a look what's cooking in Cosmos. With that off the table, I've got Juri with me here from Frens Validator. Welcome, Juri.
Hi, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
So, Juri, can you tell us about Frens Validator? How did you guys get started?
Yeah, so everything started in the bear market, so to speak, in 2020. My co-founder and I, Fabian, were a little bit bored, and we wanted to dive deeper into crypto. We wanted to get active in the crypto industry, and this is why we launched a media outlet about different things. We had like a small podcast show, we had a newsletter going on, and all of these things. And then further down the road, we moved to Lisbon, met CryptoCito, one of our closest friends. He's also a famous Cosmos YouTuber. And yeah, we joined forces in Lisbon, launched the Cosmoverse conference together. And then at the Cosmoverse conference 2021, we met our other co-founders, and then we also decided to join forces here. And then around 1 year ago, we launched our validator, so a couple of months after Cosmoverse 1.0. And ever since then, we did all kinds of things in the Cosmos ecosystem from different angles.
So how big's the team now?
We have around 10 or 12 team members, something like that.
And how many of those would be focused sort of on the technical part of like running validators and operations versus, like publicity and public goods like Cosmoverse?
So we have 4 people taking care of the tech, so making sure that all the validators are being updated, that our auto compound bot is working properly. Then we have including me, 2 people on the business development side. We also have 3 people also in the media team that help us with all kinds of things. For example, we also launched TikTok now because we believe that this is where the next generation is. So if we want to get them into crypto, this is where we have to start. So yeah, this is how it's split. So I would say 30% of the team, something like that, is exposed to tech directly or indirectly, and then we have 1 person solidly for governance, and as you can imagine, is a pretty big deal in Cosmos.
Yeah. How many chains do you guys validate in total?
Right now, so I would say 22 or something. We also participate in some test nets right now and are about to launch more in the very near future. So actually yesterday we successfully also launched our 2 first chains outside of the Cosmos ecosystem, which were Solana and Near.
Oh, so you guys are validating Solana and Near. Okay. Any plans for Polkadot? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, we are always open to everything. We have a multi-chain mindset, so to speak. But right now we don't have any concrete plans here. We are focusing on Cosmos and the new 2 chains that we onboarded. But yeah, I've always loved, for example, the Near ecosystem, since it's also pretty tied to Ethereum and also the Cosmos ecosystem. Near plans to launch IBC as well. So this will be very interesting to see how they become a part of the interchain. And Solana, I'm so curious how they will move forward after this whole FTX dilemma. So
Tough
I'm
times.
so curious and excited. Yeah, but this is also where sometimes the opportunity lies in, and being part of that is very exciting, especially in a bear market.
Absolutely agree. Bear market, best time to start things, huh?
Yeah, that's very
So
true.
if we focus back on Cosmos, how do you guys pick chains which you want to validate? What's your process? When you hear about a new project and you see, you want to sort of get your bearings and make a call here. What do you guys do?
So most of the times, so how we started was we reached out to all of our contacts that we had due to Cosmoverse and our first media outlet. We said, hey, we launched 2 or 3 validators we want to expand. And then we talked to the foundations, and then we helped them with media things or had them on the show, and we provided added value in terms of interacting with their community, in terms of creating content. But right now it's often the case, or like usually the case, that the foundations come to us because they see, oh, Frens Validator is a validator that we want to have in our ecosystem. So they reach out to us, and then we do the thought process. Should we launch there or shouldn't we launch there? And then most of the times the thought process starts with, should we participate in the testnet there? And it mostly comes down to, what are the people behind this project? So do we want to support this team? Do we believe in this team? Do we believe in the product? Do we believe that this product will provide additional value to the broader Cosmos ecosystem? And also, is this product exciting? And moreover, since we are a community validator, I would say, so we have a very strong community. We are very active on Twitter. We produce a lot of content. So we are very, very directly connected to the community. We also ask ourselves, is our community on this chain? So when community members are on this chain, do they have the necessity to have us on this chain as a representation, to have this this trust process? I'm staking here with friends also because I'm holding my coins also on this chain. So is our community also on this chain, or will our community be on this chain in the future? So these are some of the questions we ask.
So if you look through this lens, what are the most exciting projects, or what are the projects you're keeping an eye on right now in Cosmos? What's coming?
Yeah, I think you always have to take this with a big grain of salt. I mean, I love all of the projects we are validating on because I'm a true Cosmos believer. I also work for some projects as an advisor, but one project I'm very excited about, for example, is SwordChain. SwordChain is a project that is about to launch in the Cosmos ecosystem, and the guys are a Turkish project. They started in the automotive industry, and what they built is a device that tracks the data of the underlying road your car is driving on. And they followed a product first approach. So they built this product first, and then they launched a blockchain. Because usually what a lot of these projects do, they try to bring off-chain data on-chain. They start with the blockchain, and then they try to figure out the off-chain part, which is, in my view, the wrong way around, and they did it the right way around, and they already have a partnership confirmed with Suzuki. So in the next generation of Suzuki cars, this device will be implemented, and you earn SOAR tokens when you drive your Suzuki car. And there are like a lot of ways for people to innovate. So for example, you can build an application on top of this blockchain that is tailored to the automotive industry. So this is a very exciting project. And besides that, of course, all the projects that are about to come, aka the Archway blockchain is about to launch, then DYDX obviously becoming a Cosmos chain. So there are so many things I can be excited about.
Right. And the key question, or one of the key questions these guys also have to answer, is how do they build their blockchain, right? So like Cosmos is, one of the reasons I like Cosmos is it's an experimental hotbed of a whole bunch of tech and capabilities and economic structures. One sliver of which focuses on security. So how do I build my blockchain project? Should this be a sovereign app chain? Should I build on top of something like Dimension or Saga? Should I use ICS? Do I get engaged in some sort of shared security models like mesh or alliance? What's your take here? Maybe starting from ICS as the center point, or like that's launched on the hub. What's your take on ICS as a shared security model?
So ICS was one of the things that made me really excited about Cosmos in the beginning when I started to dive deeper. So the one thing that made me excited about the most was the fact that blockchains can communicate with each other seamlessly. And the second thing was the Cosmos SDK paired with interchain security. This really made me super, super excited. And I also think that interchain security generally is a pretty cool concept, but right now, as closer we are moving to the launch, I also realized that a lot of competitors are trying to keep up with us. So they launch alternative shared security models. So for example, I think we see a taste of that in Eigenlayer, a project that everyone is talking about in the Ethereum ecosystem, for example. So we see a lot of projects that try to build on top of the lessons learned from interchain security and try to optimize it. And what my feelings about interchain security is that it's an amazing concept, but I think we should also build a little bit further than we have initially planned to do so. So the idea for interchain security, I think, came up in the very early days, like 2019 or something, 2018, something like this. And of course, the space has changed, and the hub is following a very, very, very minimalistic approach. And the question I'm asking myself right now is the vision of the hub eventually a little bit too minimalistic? And should we maybe reconsider to do some minor changes here and there?
Right. In particular, the current version of ICS, I believe called ICS v1, right? I mean, there's another version on the books. If we focus on ICS v1, as looking at this from 10,000 feet as the general idea that whoever is a validator on Cosmos, then upon a governance proposal, if the governance proposal passes, they now have to run additional validators, additional code that validates another network on their adjacent to their Cosmos validator. This scales to, I believe, the ICS v1 was envisioned to scale to 5 additional networks, if I'm not mistaken. So, do you think it makes sense to go forward with this first initial version of the system, or should Cosmos wait until the next version comes out, which will have more granular governance, right? At least.
I think at least what we should do now is bring this product over the finish line, because from there it's also easier to push the ball forward faster. But I think the vision of interchain security v1, what you just mentioned, comes with a lot of challenges. So I can tell you from our perspective, it's like we are validating on around 20 chains right now. So if interchain security launches, say with Neutron now, and then 2 others, like 2 more blockchains would be added to that, for us that's a drip on the hot stone, right? Because validating 2 more chains on 20 chains, for us that's fine, because we are used to validate on multiple chains. But what about validators who launched with 2 or 3 chains, and this is what they do? They said, hey, we just want to validate on, let's say, 4 or 5 chains that we truly believe in. Adding here 2 or 3 chains would add a lot of overhead, because you need to keep track of another Discord, you need to keep track of more updates, and so on and so forth. So I think there are a lot of scaling issues with that. Then you have another governance component coming with that. And then there are so many question marks. So for example, what I still do not really understand is, for example, so Neutron, for example, will launch with interchain security. But what if Neutron suddenly becomes larger than the hub itself? Why should Neutron borrow specifically the hub's security? Or why shouldn't they just start going the path that mesh security potentially provides? So there are so many question marks here, because first of all, we have now so many alternatives. And again, besides that, what if the consumer chain becomes larger than the hub. And this can happen because on these consumer chains, we have more complexity added, i.e. we have liquid staking protocols on top of these consumer chains. We have like eventually lending protocols. So there is a real case for that the consumer chains eventually become bigger than the Cosmos hub. And then the question is, why should they borrow why should the consumer chains borrow the hub's security? This is where I still struggle to wrap my head around.
Right. I mean that that makes sense. What are the? I believe there are 5 chains announced, right? That they're going to be using ICS. Two of them focus, at least 2 of them focus on liquid staking, right? You mentioned Neutron, and there's also Stride. I believe there's the chain which is going to issue USDC.
Yeah, but they stepped back recently, the USDC thing.
Oh, okay. So they're not going to be a consumer chain.
There were some problems, but I think so. The original idea was thrown away, but I don't want to say anything wrong now. But I remember that they threw the idea away. So right now, like the chains that will definitely launch with interchain security are Stride and Neutron, and Quicksilver said in the beginning that they plan to launch with interchain security. And then in mid-2022, they stepped back from their commitment. They don't say that they will never use interchain security, but they said we are not committing to it.
Right. So the chains that we can confirm are going to use ICS are liquid staking chains. So it seems that liquid staking is sort of an important project to the hub because these have to pass hub governance, right? So some people had to take a decision that these are the chains that should be consumer chains. Focusing on liquid staking for a second, what do you think liquid staking does for Cosmos? Is it important? Should we have it? Does it carry any risks?
I mean, liquid staking will be an elementary part of the Cosmos ecosystem, but not only the Cosmos ecosystem, but the whole crypto space, because no matter where you look at, most of the proof of stake networks have an unbonding period. Some of the unbonding periods are shorter, some of the unbonding periods are longer, but also the near ecosystem, like the near blockchain, has an unbonding period. So there will always be a demand for liquid staking, since there are people who want to stake but don't want to be dependent on a bonding period, because if they stake and they say they want to sell their assets quickly, they can't due to this unbonding period. So liquid staking will be an essential part of the broader crypto industry. I think liquid staking will grow to a multi-billion-dollar industry in the next 10 years or so if the proof of stake concept works, but I'm convinced of that also after Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake. But yeah, this is the reason why I think the liquid staking case is inevitable. And I mean, there are a lot of advantages in terms of capital efficiency, but there are also some risks in terms of centralization. So say a lot like, I mean, Lido, for example, has become one of the largest steps in the Ethereum ecosystem. And the question remains, what happens if such a protocol becomes too large and gets like a huge voting power over a blockchain? What happens then? And there are like different approaches how to solve it. Some liquid staking solutions do it that way, that the user decides with which validator they want to use, or they give the whole power back to the user. And then there are some who inherit the whole power.
It's like Quicksilver does that.
Yeah, Quicksilver is giving all the power back to the user. But then there are like solutions like P-Stake where validators are already picked and you can't choose from them. So there are some advantages and disadvantages. So there is no right answer to that, but definitely there are risks and there are opportunities. Also in terms of potential hacks, what if a liquid staking solution becomes too big and it suddenly gets exploited or hacked? What are we doing then? So we should definitely avoid single points of failures, and this is why I'm happy to see so many liquid staking solutions right now, with Lido launching on Neutron, with P-Stake, with Quicksilver, with Stride. The more the better.
Right. Do you foresee any risk of centralization in Cosmos? Have you, like in your mind, have you picked a solution that's going to capture large market share?
I like, the deeper I dove, the more I believe that we will see a huge variety of liquid staking solutions. So, for example, Stride and Quicksilver are often viewed as competitors, so to see. But since they provide a very different approach, I think, like for me as a consumer, I want to have like all kinds of different solutions. So first of all, I want to have atoms natively staked on the hub, because this is where I get most of the APR, but I also lose a lot of capital efficiency. So then I want to have then I also don't want to put all of my atoms, I also don't want to liquid stake all of them on one protocol, since this bears a certain risk, right? So I want to use Quicksilver to have parts of my atom being used in that way, that I have all the power in terms of governance and picking my own validator and so on and so forth. And then I, for example, want to have, I want to liquid stake parts of my atom in such a way that I don't have to worry about anything. So I go with p-stake, for example. And then I also want to have like some of my atoms liquid stake in such a way that I say, okay, this is the potentially the most securest way to do it. I do it via Stride, because Stride is its own blockchain secured by the hub itself, and it's a minimalistic blockchain, so there are no smart contracts being deployed on Stride. So I go and say, okay, I also liquid stake some on Stride, because that's where I reduce my risk significantly. And this is how I move forward, because I put all my eggs into different baskets, and this is how I hedge against a worst case scenario. And as we have seen it on the previous weekend, it's very important to hedge and not to have all your eggs in one basket. So this is where I see the future heading. Also a decentralization in terms of how to use these products.
Mm-hmm. So if I can summarize for myself what you're saying, you're thinking each of those solutions is going to fill a particular niche, a particular need that a consumer has. So you don't yourself see that one of these could automatically dominate, but you're thinking they will address different segments of the market that are looking for different features. You think they're substantially different in the sense that they really bring different varieties of liquid staking.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, all of them make a certain trade-off in things. So for example, I think the comparison between Stride and Quicksilver explains it the best way. So Quicksilver gives the user more power, but this also gives a certain risk to the user, because now he has to make a certain decision. While on Stride, you use the Stride tokens, and then the community votes on a reputable validator set, like which validators will be picked. So you have the support of the broader community. That's not the case at Quicksilver. In Quicksilver, it's your game. It's your beer with which validator you want to stake. So you know what I'm trying to say here. It's both of them have trade-offs, but therefore also completely different advantages. So I don't think that we will see one of the liquid staking protocols taken completely over.
So it's interesting that you also mentioned in your own personal portfolio, you'd also be using like traditional staking, right? So not liquid staking, it sounds like you'll take part of your atoms and just natively stake them on the hub. Why would you want to do that? If is it to hedge risk?
Yeah, there are lots of them. So first of all, mitigating the risk, because at the end of the day, it's still the most securest way to stake, since you are staking it natively on the chain. There's no more secure way to stake. Second reason is also you save fees, because when doing liquid staking, you need to spend fees, since this is a service you use, right? Quicksilver, Stride, p-stake, they all help you to use your atoms capital efficient, but they also want to have a fee for that. So it's the most cheapest way and the most profitable way to do this on the chain itself. And then lastly, airdrops, because if you stake atoms natively on the hub, then you have most likely most of the exposure to potential airdrops. So as you can see, there are a lot of ways how I should interact in the interchain with staking.
Right, the airdrop perspective is certainly interesting. I don't believe anybody in the liquid staking space has solved this problem of actually being able to guarantee your eligibility for airdrops while liquid staking your tokens, right? I don't know if anybody is actually able to do that. Do any of the liquid staking solutions advertise that? Are you aware of anybody saying you can still get your airdrops?
I don't know if only one of them are advertising that, but for example, on Quicksilver, like Quicksilver reserved 50% of its supply for each chain they onboard. So there's like a huge supply
Hmm.
for the airdrop reserved. So more Quicksilver tokens are distributed to the market, the more chains they onboard. But I don't know how it precisely works when receiving an airdrop. But I think it should work since you are like in the Quicksilver case. But don't take my words for granted. But since you are like choosing the validator and also can interact in governance decisions, I believe that this would be the case. But I'm not 100% sure.
On Quicksilver, I think that's not possible because you don't actually have your own wallet. So the way Quicksilver, I read the white paper way back. I think I can replay most of it, but their idea is they have let's say 100 wallets open on the target chain, and they sort of render their governance votes via those wallets, right? So if you have 100,000 people, and they each vote with their proportion, they'll say, okay, 85% yes, 15 no. So they'll actually go and render that vote using the 100 wallets. So if it was equal distribution, then 85 of them would say yeah. So I think the governance pass-through, I was studying this because I found this interesting. I think the governance pass-through feature isn't conducive to actually getting those airdrops. And I don't know what would be the actual requirement. I mean, that's why I was asking. But for Quicksilver, I don't think they should be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Then yeah. I really don't. I really didn't dive too deep into the airdrop aspect. Since also the last couple of airdrops have not been too relevant, I would say. For me, the most important part is
Right.
who has the governance rights. So who is making, like in terms of decentralization, ensuring that no
Decisions.
liquid staking protocol can take over the Cosmos hub potentially.
Right, right. Yeah, that's definitely a key part in securing the Cosmos. Let's touch on another topic that I wanted to hit up with you, and that's MEV. Right, the game of MEV is heating up in Cosmos. We've got a couple of companies at least developing MEV solutions, Skip Money and Mechatech. Right, they're proposing some interesting ideas. Do you think? What's your take on sort of MEV Cosmos? First of all, do you guys run MEV? Have you guys tested anything? What's your experience? Do you have any firsthand sort of reports?
Yeah, so we run Mechatech right now on several chains. So we were one of the first ones who really dive deeper into the topic of MEV. We also published a huge documentary about that, about MEV in Colombia in the jungle because of dark forest and stuff. So we are like very well aware of MEV, and we believe that this would be a super crucial part of crypto's future, also from a validator perspective, because you have to imagine right now the reason why most of the validators actually earn money at all right now is inflation. So, for example, Osmosis is an excellent example. We made a lot of money in the beginning when the inflation was high. Now the inflation is decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. But since not many fees are also generated on Osmosis, since the transaction fees are so cheap, then the question will be, how will all of these validators stay profitable? If you're like, let's say, on rank 90 or 95 on Osmosis and you just make money with fees, will this be enough to cover the server costs? And this is like a question that needs to be answered, because if we would do the calculation now with based on the current fee revenues, then all of these validators would still be heavily unprofitable. And with MEV, if we democratize the access to it and, for example, give MEV revenue to the stakers via the validators, that could be a potential new income stream to compensate the loss of inflation. So yes, MEV will be a very relevant topic for the future, and also obviously for decentralization and to ensure that the user has a great user experience and not gets sandwiched all the time.
Right, right. So you touched on a very interesting topic, which I feel is coming into the focus today, which is governance around MEV. Right? Is it how and who should make decisions around, what kinds of MEV are or aren't allowed on the chain, And in particular, also a second aspect of governance, like how do you split the rewards from MEV, right? Obviously, so the validator mines the block, right? And if they're using a particular MEV solution, part of the block is a MSG send transaction, which sends some token to like an auction house address or some sort of address. And then those have to be somehow split. So what's your view on a healthy way to manage the extracted assets?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a very important part here, what the validator is doing. So right now, a validator produces the block and proposes it. But then we have the potential solution of separating this. So this, it's called PBS. So we could separate the building, like the process of building the block and then proposing it. So it's called proposer builder separation. So this could be like also one way to determine who is doing most of the work in terms of abstracting the MEV that is being generated by clarifying through the protocol design more precisely who is at the end of the day more involved with abstracting MEV revenue. So I think this is one way to do it. And then I don't like, because this term always comes up with what is good MEV, what is bad MEV. I'm a little bit skeptic about that. So for me, MEV at the end of the day is just block space that is free. And some people are using it in that way and others are using it in that way. Block space for me is an economic good and part of the innovation that comes from blockchain designs. And like, let's compare to the car. Let's say block space is an invention and we compare to the invention of the car. Of course, you can do bad things with a car. You can kill people with that. You can drive it. You can drive a car drunk and kill someone, but you can also just use it to get from A to B. And this is how I also view MEV. It's just an outcome from an innovation, and now we are here. But there's no good and bad. It's just, let's figure out how we should use block space in such a way that it hurts at just a few people, or like as few people as possible,
to minimize the harm.
Try to make the best. Yeah, exactly. Minimize the harm, maximize the upside.
One of the reasons why I'm excited about PBS, I've also read up on that proposal. This idea of separating the builder of the block and the proposer is, it's likely to help decoupling sort of upgrades on chain from upgrades to the MEV infrastructure, right? Right now, if you use either of the Skip Money or Mechatech, you actually have to build your own node, and you have to substitute the old tournament dependency with the MEV tendermint of the respective party, right? So first of all, you have to pick one. And second of all, you have to rely on them to have a version available on time. So actually when the chain upgrade happens, you can do a build and get it all out. You're exposing your node to bugs. If there is a very clear separation between the node, then the security upgrade or chain upgrade can happen independently, and the builder is still connecting to the same API, right? So I feel like that would be a really big upgrade in my book of how this would work. And I believe there's also a proposal on osmosis around like protocol owned sort of MEV. Have you looked into these two, like how they differ? Do you have a viewpoint?
Yeah, like there was this governance proposal on osmosis. I think it was in September or so, that they wanted to opt in with Skip. But yeah, you mentioned some of the challenges, and there are like lots of challenges that come for validators. So for example, it's also the question whether one of the solutions also provides remote signing, so that you can continue the infrastructure in that way that you initially designed it and optimized it to. So there are so many question marks. But for me right now, we are still in a very experimental phase with that, and we will definitely see the outcome of it. And let's be honest, right now, all the MEV that is being abstracted on Osmosis and on Juno are pennies, because right now the volume is very low on all of the chains. So we are just seeing small things. So I'm part of the party. Let's just try it out in the bear market. Abstract as many experiences as possible, and then it really makes sense to to determine the outcomes and to say, okay, this is the approach that we should follow in the next few years, because right now none of these solutions are battle tested and just have advantages and disadvantages, and each validator has to elaborate on what solution is better for him.
Right. Let's do all the heavy lifting and testing now, so we're ready for the next bull market, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that sounds like a good optimistic note to sort of finish off the podcast. So thanks very much, Juri, for coming on. It was great to chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and greetings to Prague, and good luck with Gateway.
Thanks very much.